while this is my first opportunity to vote for a Supreme Court nominee named by a Democratic president, I don't view the confirmation of judges through a partisan lens. Instead of partisanship, I have developed several criteria for assessing Supreme Court nominations. And I believe these criteria are straightforward and they're easy to understand. Does the nominee have extensive experience with the law and a judicial temperament? Has the nominee demonstrated sharp legal intelligence and sound judgment? Does the individual display a judicial philosophy that falls within the mainstream of American legal thought? Is he or she able and willing to separate their personal beliefs from their constitutional obligations? On each count, I rule in favor of Judge Sotomayor. Mr. President, my colleagues and I have all been listening carefully to Judge Sotomayor's testimony, and we have reviewed her record. In that record, everything that I have been able to ascertain indicates that Justice Sotomayor will look a lot like Judge Sotomayor, an exemplary arbiter of the law, firm but practical, tough but fair. For these reasons, I will cast my vote to confirm her as the next Associate Justice of the Supreme Court. When I met with Judge Sotomayor, we discussed a number of important issues, particularly matters relating to national security, the power of the Commander-in-Chief, and we also spent some time, Mr. President, on a matter that I know the President and the Senate is most interested in, and that is end-of-life health care. What struck me the most about Judge Sotomayor was her openness, her intellectual curiosity, and her desire to make sure that she had all the facts, all the information, all of the views and background and reading material that you have to have when you're going to make a call, not on the basis of your predispositions, but on the basis of the law, and the law as it's applied to the facts. I do want to start my comments by saying that I believe with young people at home in Oregon, this nomination by President Obama is regarded as an inspiration and a remarkable personal story. Oregonians have told me that they look at her journey as the realization of the American dream. Oregonians have followed her testimony before the Senate Judiciary Committee. They believe that she is qualified for this job. They're very excited about the fact that this nomination makes history, and I commend the President for demonstrating with this nomination how it is possible to increase the diversity of talent and experience on the Supreme Court with one very capable individual. Now, Chairman Leahy and others have done an excellent job of going through the judge's impressive background. So I do want to spend some time talking about the two issues that Judge Sotomayor and I discussed in our office most extensively: presidential power and end of life. Serving on the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence, I've followed the history with respect to the President's Commander-in-Chief authority. Disagreements about this authority and how it's applied are certainly nothing new. There have been vigorous debates about this issue since our country was founded. But over the past several years, there has been especially heated debate around these questions, and in particular, the issue of whether during times of war the president has the authority to ignore laws passed by the United States Congress. As a result, there have been several occasions over the past few years where the Supreme Court has had to rule on major national security issues and address this question directly. Our court has frequently been sharply divided on these issues. At the same time, it has consistently ruled in the view and the words of Justice Sandra Day O'Connor, a state of war is not a blank check for the president. I believe that this is a principle to be upheld. When I raised these issues with Judge Sotomayor, I was impressed with her thoughtfulness, her knowledge, and the experience she discussed for dealing with these thorny issues. Her answers made me believe that as a Supreme Court justice, Judge Sotomayor would apply the Constitution in a way that struck a balance, a very careful balance, between protecting our collective security and protecting our individual liberty. And while Judge Sotomayor certainly gave no inkling to me in our discussion about national security, how she might rule in a particular case, I felt very strongly that she would be able to define the reach of the Commander-in-Chief's power so as to strike that appropriate balance between collective security and individual liberty. I must say, I don't want judges that will defer to any one president. I want judges that are going to defer to the law, judges that are going to defer to the Constitution. And I believe that Judge Sotomayor will do that in her service on the United States Supreme Court. Mr. President, as I mentioned, I discussed with the judge the matter of end-of-life health care. This is a very sensitive issue for millions of Americans. And what was striking about this in our discussions when she and I met is that she recognized that it was a contentious area of the law, one that deals with the rights of individuals and family members. And she certainly indicated that she was going to spend a lot of time trying to learn about the history of cases in this area and the court's judgments on end-of-life care. I've been very interested particularly in Justice Brandeis's dissent in the Olmstead case. This was a 1928 case. The Supreme Court later adopted Justice Brandeis's view in the Katz case, which essentially made it clear that there was a right to be left alone, a right to be respected in these very delicate questions. And what concerned me so much about the Terry Schiavo case, and again, Judge Sotomayor gave no inkling about how she would rule in an end-of-life case, I think she understood my concern and would follow up on it, that we cannot have elected officials, and particularly the United States Senate, become something of a medical court of appeals, where the United States Senate essentially appoints itself as the arbiter of these very difficult tragedies. Judge Sotomayor didn't commit herself to any specific position on end-of-life issues or any of the other issues. Let me close simply by saying that when we have to review a nominee for this extraordinarily important position, one of the most important measures for me is to know that the nominee's views are squarely in the mainstream of American jurisprudence. I came away believing that, But I hope that the Senate won't take my word for it or any other colleague's word for it. I think we ought to reflect on what the American Bar Association said. They gave her its highest rating. Or listen to former FBI Director Louis Freeh, who called her an outstanding judge. Or read the dozens of endorsements for her, including those from the American Hunters and Shooters Association, the Chamber of Commerce, and the National Association of Women Lawyers. Mr. President, I started my statement tonight by laying out the criteria that I believe ought to be used in evaluating a Supreme Court nominee. In terms of those criteria, Judge Sotomayor is an individual who will bring great credit to the Supreme Court. She will be a role model for millions and millions of young people in our country, and I hope our colleagues will vote in a resounding fashion in favor of her nomination to serve on the United States Supreme Court.